it's pretty much the same as here. The only difference is on the weekends. Yeah, it's nice because you're in an island paradise. Right? You're at the beach and everything. But he said my work day, my Monday to Friday, it's like just living anywhere else, right? And yes, and there's zero income tax there, so that helps a little bit.
Oh yeah.
That's why it's a very wealthy island, because it's a tax shelter, because you can go there and you pay zero income tax. Anybody who works there, so a lot of companies set up jobs there, right? Because they get zero income tax. But yeah, so it's he grew up in Toronto though, right? So for him it was a nice change, right? But other people, yeah, even I have family in Europe, right? Or friends, a lot of them want to come out here, and for them, because even in Europe, there's winter, but it's different than this. Like over there, like, you know, if you're like -5, sometimes -5, I'm like, I go outside.
So true, yeah.
Okay, we start this.
So you've been here a long time?
5 years.
5 years, yeah. Always in Calgary?
Yes.
Yeah.
O streaming já está iniciado, né?
Acredito que sim.
Isso, já está tudo ok. É só go live no YouTube e no Facebook. No Facebook talvez nem precise.
Oi?
No Facebook acho que não precisa, é só no...
Não, já tá online.
Já tá
A
online?
foto que sumiu.
Ah, foto subiu.
So you're right. The northeast, so like England, a little bit of maybe northern France. My family's Hungarian, so they come from like the center south, and there it's you get as you go closer to the Mediterranean, more sun.
Oh, more sun.
Yeah, so the weather gets a lot nicer. My brother just came back from Italy, like just now.
Italy, no. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. But northern Italy, if you're in the deep, very north, it's mountains, so it's cold there. Like it's a big difference between southern Italy and northern Italy. Like you go.
Because Capri is a paradise.
Yes.
Capri is so beautiful, yeah.
But that's I think in the south, right?
Yeah, it is.
But in the north,
Talvez
it's
você não abre.
Yeah, you can go skiing in northern Italy. So it's interesting how different it is, right? And in Spain too, like it's all
Let's go.
Portugal as well. A lot of
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Sorry to interrupt this
no,
conversation about summer and beaches. I know. So cold here that we want to talk about Hawaii and places that are warmer than here. But let's come back to Canada.
warm environment down here.
Exactly. Very warm here too.
That's right.
Right. Okay, thank you very much for coming today, for joining us in our public meeting. It's cold, and I really appreciate all the efforts that you guys made to be here with me today. And thank you for all that are joining us on YouTube or Facebook. You're all very welcome, and please participate with comments and questions, and you too. Okay. Let's start with the reminders. We have a special Christmas lunch this month. It's an earlier celebration of Christmas because we are gonna go for some of our friends, and some workers will be traveling in December, so we decided to through a special Christmas event earlier this year. So everyone is invited to join us on the 27th of November at the St. Andrews Heights. So the address is there, but we are happy to provide Google Map localization if in case you need. But I guess most of you guys have been there before, so hopefully we can see everybody there and enjoy with us this special event. Perfect, thank you very much. So let's start our reflections today. And the text that we're going to use to start our reflections is the number 5 from the Living Spring from Francisco Cândido Xavier by the Spirit Manual. And the text number 5, which is has the title, Can You Go? And Emmanuel will provide us some reflections upon the verse of this teaching of Jesus called Come Into Me. Believers hearken to the Master's call, heeding his blessed consolations. Spiritual instructors repeat it in order to communicate vibrations of spiritual comfort to their listeners. Everyone listen to the words of Christ, who invites the troubled mind and the tormented heart to seek his refreshing embrace. However, if it's easy to hear and repeat the Lord's "Come into me," how difficult the go to him is. Here, the Master's words are poured out like a vitalizing balm, but the bounds of immediate gratification are just too strong. There, the divine invitation is heard amidst promises of renewal for the redemptive journey, but the prison of discouragement isolates the spirit behind its unyielded bars. Yonder, the call of the Most High soothes the sorrows of the disillusioned soul, but breaking free from obstacles comprised of people and things, situations, and seemingly pressing private interests is almost impossible. Jesus, our Savior, opened his loving, compassionate arms to us. A life focused on him becomes enriched with imperishable values, and in the shades of his heavenly teachings, we press onward through sanctifying toil towards our universal homeland. All believers may hear his consoling appeal, but very few show themselves to be valorous enough in the faith to go in search of his company. In short, it's very pleasant to hear the "Come unto me." However, can you truthfully say that you can go? And with this beautiful message of Emmanuel, let's start our meeting today. So let's close our eyes and raise our minds and our hearts to Lord, to our Master Jesus, asking him to be with us today, as he promised that he would be. Among 2 or 3 that will be together, reflecting upon his teachings on his name, he would be with us. So let's feel his presence, his consoling arms embrace each of us, bring us peace, encouragement, and faith, so we can feel our hearts opened and our minds also opened to hear, to understand his invitation, and to decide to go to him. May we be grateful for God to provide us this time to reflect, and also all the spirituality from FSCS, who is always with us, helping us to understand the divine words from Jesus. Let's say thank you to all this spirituality, the spiritual help that we have, and let's start our talking today. Let's be full of profound reflections that can change and touch our hearts. So be it. Thank you, everyone, once again, to be here with us. And today, let's reflect upon this invitation from Jesus that we can understand as an invitation to learning, and see if we already are able to accept to go to Him. We have been listening or hearing this invitation for so long, as Emmanuel reminds us. But we are still not sure if we can go. So let's reflect today upon what is stopping us to go to Jesus, to truly go to Jesus. Not to the person Jesus as a myth, as a personality, but to His teachings that we can find in the Gospel, and also in the Gospel according to Spiritism, in the Spirit's book, and all those books that Allan Kardec kindly wrote to us. So let's reflect today about how to be His apprentice, because all this, what the main message from this passage, or this message from Jesus, is to inviting us to become His apprentice. So how can I be a Jesus apprentice, a sincere disciple of Jesus? How can I learn from Him? And this talk is very dear to my heart, and this is the second time that I bring up this topic this year, because I have been learning in all my struggles in life, my questions, my conflicts, my inner conflicts. How can I be? How can Jesus help me? So how can I be a good apprentice? So I can deal with my struggles in life in a lighter way, in a better way, searching for the lesson that each situation, circumstances, problems brings to us. Because if it's a problem, it's because we still need to learn how to deal with this. It's like in school, when we go to school and we learn some lessons, the teachers come, they bring us the theory, and then we need to reflect and think how we can, if we learned what the theory, so they bring us exercises to practice. And then we need to, okay, how can I do this? The teacher said that, the teacher thought that, so how can I deal with this? How can I solve this problem? And if we commit any mistakes, it's because we were students. So we come back to the teacher and say, hey, I couldn't figure out, could you help me? And they will help us to understand which part we were missing. So it's a very simple analogy, but this is how we are invited to see our problems in life. And who is our teacher? Right? So that's what we are going to trying to understand here today. And we are going to talk about verse to verse of this part, this paragraph brought by Matthew in his Gospel, and try to connect his Jesus teachings with some other teachings, like parables of the two sons, aka prodigal son, and also with the Spirit's book questions and some parts of the Gospel according to Spiritism, to help us to understand, under the light of Spiritism, what Jesus wants to bring to us. We are going to see also in these invitations three divine laws: the law of love, the law of reincarnation, and the law of progress. We're going to try to see where those laws are and what the virtues that we are invited to develop in order to comply with those laws. Okay? And I really appreciate if you guys help me to understand and provide me your thoughts, your comments, and questions. Okay, so this is going to be more dynamic, not me only speaking here. All right, so let's start. Let me find my mouse here because today is the technology struggles. Okay, let's start with some reflections that I don't need that you guys answer those questions. It's just for inner, just to think in our own hearts what that means to me. Okay. So questions that I would like to bring up are, do I want to accept Jesus' invitation? Because Jesus invites us, but it depends on us if we're going to accept or not his invitations. And how can I identify the obstacles that are preventing me going to him? Which type of obstacles that I can see myself that is, like it's prevent me to really be an apprentice of life? And which virtues does this invitation include? And if they are beneficial to me. All virtues are beneficial for us, but this is a question that we need to answer to ourselves to see, okay, if I develop the virtue of love, how I will be, what's the advantage that I'm going to get for my life, right? So let's go to the passage that we're going to reflect upon. We are going to find this passage in Matthew chapter 11, verse 28 to 30, where Jesus will say, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So here is the complete invitation. And let's think about the first verse. When Jesus says, "Who are weary and burdened?" Why Jesus specifically invite those?
Because they already recognize the situation and they want to change.
Perfect. Recognize that I am suffering.
And they are closer step to changing themselves than somebody that is suffering but in denial. That's
right. Perfect. And this is what Emmanuel says to us in this "Come to Me," when he tells us about 3 obstacles. The first one is when we don't want to accept the invitation because we want to, we have this short-sighted mindset. When we want everything by now. I don't want to deal with this situation. I am in trouble. I want to get rid of this. This can happen when we are sick or when we have a relationship problem, I want to come back to the state that I didn't have any problems. And when the problem just doesn't disappear, we start feeling discouraged. We start feeling, I cannot do this. This is too much. I don't know how to deal with this. I want to give up. Or sometimes we get rebelled, like we don't want to deal with this, we get angry, we want to say, why God's doing that with me? Why I'm going through this situation? Or sometimes we just go to that stage that we want to forget. So I want to have pleasure in my life. I want to go. I want to forget about my problems. So I try to escape. This can be through work. This can be through going to parties, or maybe buying stuff, or some alcohol or drugs, anything that numbs my conscience. I don't want to deal with this. So if we neglect the problem is not going to solve by itself. So the invitations there is, how can I deal with this? How can I learn what is the cause of this problem? And that is where we need to reflect upon this question, because if we look the problem that we are having now and we cannot find any cause, like I didn't do anything in this life to be facing this problem, to have this experience, so then we understand. Then we need to, or we are invited to see the law of reincarnation, because the law of reincarnation is the only one that will be able to help us to understand, because you're going to bring us a big picture. Yeah.
This is actually one of the things that, at least personally for me, made me believe in Spiritism more than any other religious or religion that I searched for, right? Because none of them would explain the inequalities of the world, or why some people suffer more than others, why are some are born very wealthy and the others are born poor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why so many differences and challenges in certain parts of the world, and other parts are so peaceful, right?
That's right.
Because it shows to us that it's what we're living is not necessarily a reflection of what we're doing now, but potentially a consequence, right, of good choice or bad choice that we had in the past.
Perfect.
And of course, the law of reincarnation also, tells us, or tell those who believe in it, right, that you do have the opportunity, right, to change your future right now by making good choices, So it kind of literally connects everything.
Exactly.
If you don't believe in that, or if you only believe in one life, or if you believe in materialist ideas, you only see injustice. Everything becomes injustice, right?
Exactly.
Because now why people suffer in certain regions of the world while others are so wealthy, right?
Yes.
Is God unequal then? Is God unfair?
That's right.
Right? But the reincarnation actually brings you if you have that in mind, and then you see that those people are not in those locations or suffering those things randomly, right? And we talk about this collective this incarnation
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
events,
Mm-hmm.
for example, like the tsunami, or now the situation in Korea, right? Those people they had a connection, right, and they probably had this collective
trial,
right, an expiation that they went to suffer. So there is no randomness
exactly
in any of that, right? So potentially, if you look at their own life, most of them were 20, 30 years,
Yep.
you wouldn't see that.
No.
But the explanation is actually in previous lives, and not in the current one.
Perfect. And that you brought us to another two important laws: the law of responsibility and the law of cause and effect. Right? That we are all we are all invited to comply with them. We are free to make our choices, but ultimately we are going to need to deal with the consequences of our choices. And nothing is by chance, as Bruno just told us about. And that's what this question from the Spiritist book is very, very good to help us to understand that there's no injustice. And Kardec, in the chapter in the Spiritist book, the chapter 6, the Spirit Life, Choice of Trials, he asks to the superior spirits if when they are, meaning us, in an errant state, meaning in the spiritual realm, and before they assume a new physical existence, so we can see the law of reincarnation here, because our real life, it's in the spiritual world. do spirits see what will happen in that new existence? So do we know what's going to happen with us? And the answer is exactly what Bruno told us. They choose the type of trials they will experience, and free will exists in this freedom of choice. So most of the time we ask more than we would be able to support. And we have many, many friends, and we can see that in several books from André Luiz, from even books from scientists today, through the experience, almost a near-death experience, or people that remember their past lives. They tell us, I came because I need to solve this problem with my mom, or with my son, or with my husband. And we sometimes ask more than we are going to bear with. And the benevolent spirits, they say, this is too much. Because there is one law that always gives us exactly what we can deal with, which is the law of mercy. So nobody has a problem bigger than they could deal with, that they could handle.
And the law of mercy also tells you that you can repeat the same error as many times as you want.
Mm-hmm.
You always get another chance.
Always.
If you can do that, infinite minus one, and then the last one you will how do you say, evolve. Yeah.
Yes.
There is another law here, which I don't know the word in English, but forgetfulness or something like that.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Which brings us to the state when we were reborn, we not necessarily know about our previous mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Else it would be unbearable for most of us, right? Given so many mistakes we've committed in the past.
That's right.
Especially within the family too, right? Because people that you see every day.
Exactly. And that's what we talked about last Sunday, when we talk about family. That though where we have the most challenges that we are invited to deal with. And it's amazing because the family where we have the biggest troubles are the ones that we love the most. So that helps us to deal with those troubles because we have the love for them. They are our brothers and sisters, parents, kids. So
sometimes they don't, though, right?
Sometimes
Which are exactly the enemies that are put in family, right? Especially when you think about parents and kids, because the kids will help the parents to develop their love, right?
Yes.
You do see enemies in positions as parents and kids, and as they grow, the parents have the opportunity. They will choose eventually, right? If they want to develop their love or to abandon that kid, right? And when it gets more complicated, but they have the opportunity to, through love, rebuild those connections, right? And recreate that love between them. So it's interesting because most of us we choose our experience, right? We choose where we come.
Mm-hmm.
We choose, for example, as Brazilians, we probably chose that we would live in a different country,
Exactly.
right? To plant those seeds, for these next generations.
Because we have lived here before, I mean, we didn't do what we were supposed to do to come back.
Right? We choose to be in those families. Those
Oh,
are for those of us who are more fortunate. Unfortunately, not all of them have the same choice. Those who committed very drastic mistakes in the past, right? They born in situations that are very precarious. Let's say that way,
Yeah.
right? Some of them they have like critical diseases. Some of them don't walk. Some of them don't even speak, right? That's what we call the expiation, right?
That's right.
We have trial and expiation. Trial is something that you can do,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you work hard. Expiation is something that there's just so much debt here for you, right? We will accelerate you and we'll give you a situation that's more complicated, right? So that you can recover more quickly too from your previous mistakes. So it's interesting how all those laws they are interconnected, right? And we can name 12 more here, right?
Oh,
that are
yeah.
connected to Absolutely.
They're all together. One, and you never can not comply with any of them without or in detriment of other. Like I'm gonna comply with the love of God, and I'm not gonna comply with the love of responsibility. No, there's no way. They are connected. When you comply with one, you are complying with all of them. Thank you very much, Bruno. That's amazing. So this is important for us to recognize that we are suffering, because if we don't recognize that, we are not gonna seek for help. We're not gonna go to Jesus. And that's the reason that Jesus sent this invitation to those specifically ones that are tired and they want to have the relief. And then they will be able to accept Jesus' invitation, come to Him. So when we come to, those are verbs, and verbs are actions. So we're going to take this action. We're not going to be there just say, "Hi Jesus, please help me. Please help me," and doing nothing. So Jesus invited us to do something, to take an action. And the action that we can do is, I am suffering. I want a relief. So I go to Jesus. I go to learn with Him. Then I will receive this first relief, this rest that helps me to breathe and say, okay, what I'm going to do now? What I'm going to do now? What is the next step? So giving me that calm, that peace that helps me to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So I can set out and go back to my Father, as the parable of the two sons. And this is a great, great parable. I love this parable. I can see myself so much in the youngest son, going away from the God's house, which is our own conscious, right? Because the divine laws are in our conscious, and God is within His laws, inside of ourselves. When we decide, no, I don't want to deal with my spirituality, I don't want to think about that, we are just postpone something that we all are invited to go. We are here to discover ourselves, to discover God inside us and in our neighbors. So when we decide to walk away, we eventually will find suffering, pain, and we are gonna come back, because there's no other way where we can feel happiness and we can feel the relief. And we come to Jesus. Why Jesus? Because we could go to any other master or any other missionary that we had in the past, in the history. Yes, that's totally fine. It's not all those missionaries, Buddha, Gandhi, or any other missionaries, they also brought part of the truth, part of the divine laws. They were great, great examples that were sent to us by Jesus. Jesus is the master of the masters, because He was the one that created the world that we are now. He is our guide and model. And where are we going to see this? In the question 625, where Kardec asks, what's the most perfect type that God has offered to human beings as their guide and model? And the shortest answer that we can find in Spirit's book is that, look at Jesus. Kardec will tell us that Jesus is the realization of the highest moral perfection that human beings may attain to earth. So it's possible for us to be as Jesus. He is our model. He was living with us for 33 years as an example that it's possible.
Yeah, it's important to say not in one life.
Of course.
It would take probably millions of lives for us to get there, right?
Oh yeah.
Jesus is probably a spirit that has billions of years more than us, so it would take a lot of time for us to get there. And this is where we use the reincarnation law again, right, to purify ourselves. It's a gradual process. No one can achieve this level in one life,
no.
either in few lives, right? It will take a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I think yes, that the idea is that it is a modern guy, of course.
That's for sure. Yeah, and as to start a journey, we need to start with one step, right? So here we are very distant from Jesus. What Jesus does, we are still not able to do in total, like Jesus did. But we are invited to do as with our hearts the most that we can do. Like I can do the best I can that I can now, but I know that this is very far, very distant from what Jesus can do. But He also said to us that you are light, you are God. You can do everything that I do and much more. So we have this journey. It's a long journey, like Bruno said, and it's gradual. And that's important for us to understand because we are still apprentices. And apprentices, they are not masters. They don't know what the teacher knows. So we are here to learn. And slowly we are going to get all the knowledge that we need. And it's important to remember too that we came from a long journey as well. And we are here. So we are great because we have accomplished with so much so far.
Can be significant.
Yes.
And while absolutely it's a journey and it can be a very protracted, drawn out one, oftentimes it likely is. At each stage though, given the support that we have through teachings such as Jesus's, God Almighty ultimately, the opportunity is that we can make profound and consequential advancements at our own stages that, while yes, may still only be a step forward, but in terms of our moral, personal, philosophical, intellectual development is drastic. And I think there's a beauty and there's a consolation and there's love, a law of love there too, because while many of us will sometimes take huge swaths of time or incarnations to learn certain lessons, the love of God is so great that these lessons could be learned in one, except it's up to us as to what path we're going to take. And one of the things I love in the Gospel of John, actually, maybe because they say John's Gospel is the one where the disciple was actually there. At the Last Supper, at a certain passage, Jesus actually says, "Confide in me, believe in me, give yourself to me, and you will be able to do greater things than I have done, because I will be there in my Father's house to support you and to further your inclinations, your path, your progress, your development, or your intentions." And I think that just adds to the profundity of what it is that while Jesus is, as I said there, our most perfect teacher, He is also, in a lot of ways, our most perfect support, our most perfect confederate, our most perfect ally, and allows us to do, in His words, more than I have done. And that really, I think, places a great deal of possibility in our own lives. That rather than we are just limited beings that are capable of only so much, we are a part of a limitless and endless possibility of God's grace that can give us way more than we could on our own lives and drastically change our outcomes in one 70-year period if we want, in 1 second if we want. And to me, that there's a great deal of exceptionalism is probably the word I use in that. Sorry.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
Yeah, I remembered when you say that how Paul changes his life in one incarnation. How Mary Magdalene changed her life in just one incarnation. So the possibilities are there, and as you said, Attila, we have limitations, but we are not limited. We are unlimited. We can have all the potentials. We have all the potentials inside of us. Depends on, it's up to us to walk 2-3 miles more, or just the ones that we set up for us. So it's up to us. It's great. Thank you very much. And then we go to the take my yoke upon you, which is the next verse of Jesus. What does it mean, yoke? Do you guys know?
Traditionally, it's that thing they put on oxen to carry the load around.
Exactly. Jesus was great with analogies, right? And this is a very good example, because that yoke, right, doesn't allow the oxes to go to different directions. They are guided to go through the same direction. So what is the yoke that Jesus is offering here to us? What is his yoke?
His gospel.
Is what?
His gospel.
Gospel?
His
Yes,
teachings.
in his teachings, and what we can find in his teachings in his gospel. Just one word.
One word.
Yeah.
Love.
Love, yay! His woken is love. And if we think that that Kardec, in this question where the spirits only answered Jesus, because he gives us some other instructions about Jesus, and he says that Jesus is the most perfect model, and his doctrine is the purest expression of divine law. And if his gospel and his teachings is love, what is the divine laws? Love as well. All the divine laws are, we can put all them all together in just one word, love. Love is the law that governs the universe. And what are the laws? Why God? Why does God create laws, divine laws? And the answer is the question 614. What is the natural law? Natural law is God's law. It alone ensures the happiness of human beings. It shows them what they should or should not do. And they only suffer when they deviated from it. So when we comply with those laws, mainly the law of love, we will find happiness. Why Paul did change his life? He was the one that was persecuting the Christians, and then he became a Christian, and he became full of love and charity. Why did he change?
Because he was suffering.
Because he was suffering. And then he found peace. Because that's what the divine laws, when we comply with the divine laws, that's how we feel in peace. We get this rest that Jesus says, to come to me and I'll give you rest. And that's the rest that most of us, so many people in this world are searching for. Peace. But it's not outside of us. Peace is inside of us, in our conscious. And then we're going to talk a little bit about this wonderful law, love law, and where and how Jesus explained this law for us, and where we can find this law in his gospel. We can find in the book of Matthew, chapter 22, verse 37 to 40, when Jesus taught this doctor of law about the biggest commandment. He said, love love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, and your mind. This is the first and the greatest commandment. And the second is love your neighbors as yourself. All the law, and he uses here a singular. He doesn't say all the laws. He says all the law. And the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. So we can see that Jesus is teaching us 3 types of intelligence. The cognitive intelligence with the mind, because it's where we learn the cognitive information. With our heart is where we reflect upon something we feel deep inside of us in our heart. So this is emotional intelligence. Jesus was the first one to talk about emotional intelligence. And then in your soul, meaning living his laws and fullness. So we don't need, we cannot understand this as separate, like boxes. It's all together, because sometimes we feel, and feel, wow, what is this feeling? Like when we do something good for another person, this person come and say, hey, thank you so much, and we feel that energy, and we feel that, oh, that's good, so I'm gonna do more. So what is this that I'm feeling? Oh, that's love, that's gratitude. So I'm gonna think of what I can do more about, like, how can I get more, like, helping people, because I feel this is so good to me. And that's how we are gonna practice this law. And then we are gonna find ourselves loving ourselves and loving our neighbors, because there's no way. And I would like to read for you guys. I'm gonna ask you an excuse, but this is so beautiful that I need to read for you. This is from the Without Charity There Is No Salvation, from the Gospel, where Kardec will explain this part, this message to us. He's saying, charity and humility, that is the sole path to salvation. Selfishness and pride, that is the sole path to perdition. This principle is formulated in precise terms in these words: you shall love God with all your soul and your neighbors as yourself. All the law and the prophets are contained in these 2 commandments, and so that there may be no mistake about the interpretation of loving God and one's neighbors. Jesus adds, and this is the second commandment, which is similar to the first. What is, one cannot truly love God without loving one's neighbor, nor can one love one's neighbor without loving God. Thus, everything that is done against one's neighbor is also done against God. And since one cannot love God without practicing charity towards one's neighbor, all of humankind's duties are summed up in the maxim: without charity, there is no salvation. So here we can see the maxim of the Spiritism, that we can only practice charity by love our neighbors, loving God, and we can start practicing this love by loving ourselves first. Because we cannot give to others what we don't have. So we are invited to start loving ourselves. Start looking at ourselves in the mirror and say, hey, you are great. Say, hey, I love you so much. You are doing so much things that are so good for you. Start talking to ourselves and seeing positive. Not in that way that it's a vanished way, like, oh, I'm so beautiful, but much beautiful than so and so. No, it's more about the what we are, and we are God's children. And we have all these potentials to become better each day. It depends on us. So it's important to love ourselves, and then we're going to be able to love our neighbors, because we're going to see God in them, and we're going to be able to love God. And then the next invitation is learn from me. So we are here, Jesus is inviting us to take another action. So the first was come to me. The second was take my yoke. So take the law of God, the law of love. And the third was, learn from me. Come to me, learn from me. I am gentle and humble in heart. And here we can see, he can say that, I am gentle. Because as Bruno said, he is our oldest brother. He has gone through all this pathway that we are going now. And he is now who he is. And we are able to be there too. But this takes time. It's not overnight. But we can say, he can say, I am gentle and humble. When we can say, I'm simple and unaware. Like in the question 115, it's always good to bring this question because it teaches us our journey. So how can we learn? We are going to learn if we take our particular mission, because gave to each of us one mission. Like each of us we have our families, we have our own struggles in life, we have our own duties. So each of us have a particular mission, and this mission is enlighten ourselves gradually to reach the perfection through the knowledge of the truth. And what is the truth? The divine laws. So we can get closer to God, and in that perfection we will find eternal bliss. This is just a reflection. We are going to find this happiness on the way that we're going. It's not only at the end. As long as we're going to be developing, as we are developing our virtues, you're going to start feeling that sensation, that feel that's so good to our hearts, and that is just the beginning of our happiness. We are going to start slowly, but we are going to get there. And as more as we do, as more we feel this happiness to our hearts. So that's how we are going to learn from him, to have this knowledge of the truth, which is in his gospel. We are going to, at the same time, complying with our mission, because that's our mission. It's about to learn, and he is our master. And then we are going to feel the rest of our souls. And the rest of our souls will bring to us the condition of the apprentice. The apprentice condition of the serenity and the harmony. Because when we are practicing his teachings, we are going to start feeling this peace, this inner peace, and this love inside of us, and we feel that our soul is resting. And each problem that we are having, each struggle that we are going to experience, we are going to see that we have all the conditions to overcome. And there's a great friend of mine, he said once to me, the fact is the fact. What changes the fact is the way that we see it. Sometimes we just see the fact as a burden. We just see the fact as something bad. But what we can do is change our point of view. How can I see this fact? Where is the good part? Because I always have the good part. And it's not me that is saying that. It's Emmanuel. In the text 34 of this book, the text, the good part, he says, do not forget the good part that resides in everyone and everything. A unilateral judgment is always ruinous. A unilateral, it's just one side, judgment is always ruinous. There is neither complete imperfection nor complete perfection on this plane of evolution. The storm of the times in which we live at the moment very often becomes the fount of well-being in the time we have left to us. Let's look for the positive side of situations, events, and persons. There is always a positive side. There is always a lesson that we are invited to learn. And in one of these videos that we see from FAB, from the Federation, from the Brazilian Federation, Spiritism Federation, there was this teaching of Saulo César when he said, during these struggles in life, the situations that sometimes hard on me, which type of questions that I can ask to myself? And I have been doing that since I've heard this video. Was about, who am I? I am a mortal spirit. So I'm not this personality. This is just one of the personalities that I have now and that I had before, many others, and I'm going to have other ones. But who am I inside, deep inside? I'm mortal spirit. And what these circumstances develop in me. And I always ask that. And I always find something good. Sometimes it's a very angry customer talking to me. And what can I learn from this? Not what he's doing or she's doing. What am I doing? How I am dealing with that situation. What can I learn from this? It always helps me to calm down, to breathe, and to let it go. And keep going. And keep refreshing myself and keep providing a good, to calm down my day, to restart my day. And that's give me the serenity and harmony. And Jesus, you keep saying, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. What does he mean with this? That his yoke is easy and the burden is light. Well, it's everything that we are talking here. And with the helps from Kardec, we will see that a good explanation from the Gospel according to Spiritism, same chapter, Christ the Consoler, he will say, his yoke is the observance of the law. But the yoke is light and the law gentle because it only imposes love and charity as its obligation. And here we can put between quotations obligations, not an obligation as a duty, but an obligation as our moral obligation, which is different because we do by heart. And then it's not heavy and it's not imposed because our heart understands that that's the best thing for myself. And then we just... and that's the way that we can keep moving away, keep recalling this this teaching of Jesus to keep my life light, my life easy. When I try to see the good part, when I try to understand the lessons, when I am taking actions to really become an apprentice of life. And to finish our reflections today, I would like to bring a song. It's a beautiful song that was written by Afro Stefanini and Alírio de Cerqueira Filho from the Mato Grosso Spiritism Federation. I translated, this is my own translation of the song, the lyrics, and it's so beautiful because it reminds me that I am an apprentice. And it says, learn, learn, I want to be an apprentice and feel that I'm happy, child of God, child of God. I allow myself to find my own way to learn. I accept myself and I want to be an apprentice, to follow the teachings that Jesus bequeathed us. Smooth is the way that leads us to love. The burden of life is light on the heart when you live with love, humility, and gentleness.
Tem a mensagem do Victor. Ele diz, thank you, Sonia. As you said, the more we are able to feel love, the more we want to share and love others.
Perfect, thank you. Exactly. It's the only thing that we can share and we have more, right? We multiply. Thank you very much. Anything else? Anyone would like to add anything? Perfect, thank you very much. And this is the bibliography, the Gospel from Matthew and Mark, Spirit's book, a Gospel according to Spiritism, and the Gospel and the Spirit's book, the Live Spring, and Therapeutic is Jesus' Invitations of Illyrio. Yeah, that's something that I would like to show. This is the book where we can see these teachings. Okay, there is the whole chapter talking about this invitation. Unfortunately, we just have it in Portuguese. Okay, thank you very much. Let's go to the final prayer. Eyes again. You may thank God. Thank you for providing us those reflections today. It helps us to navigate through all problems and struggles that we have in our lives, to help us to clear the pathway, to see beyond and above all the accomplishments that we have already got, and those that are possible for us to accomplish. Thank you, God, for this opportunity of living, of this experience right now, right here. Thank you for providing us this opportunity to serve and to learn. Help us, Lord, to become more and more your sincere apprentices, to really go to you, to really bring your teachings to our hearts and take the actions that you are inviting us to take in your invitation. God, be with us during this day, during this new week that will start tomorrow, and help us to have the strength to follow your teachings in our day-to-day struggles. Bless our families and our friends, and help us to transform ourselves, and transforming in this way the world where we live. So be it.